I have invited our leadership team here tonight because they have truly been doing, along with their staff members, an incredible job developing, implementing our remote learning plan. So at the end of our presentation, which will take about between 15 and 20 minutes, we will answer any questions that the committee and the public might have. As you know, we are now in phase 3 of a response to the COVID-19 health crisis. From March 13th, when we decided to close schools, through the following week, the days were considered snow days without a structured approach to learning, but we geared up and started planning then. And we always had a focus on connecting with students, engaging students, and trying to ensure student well-being. Jen, next slide, please. So the goal has always been, first and foremost, to try to serve students' social emotional needs. Their safety and well-being has always been and will always remain the #1 priority. Equity and access were prime considerations, making sure that every single student in the Millis Public Schools had the equipment and the internet access to continue with remote learning. Connecting with their peers and their teachers has been paramount. Next slide. So when we entered the next phase, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education recommended that we not teach any new skills or content. This was in phase 2. But focus instead on connecting with students and deepening mastery of previously taught standards called our Power Standards, the most essential standards. And it was to equal about a half day of school. With the cancellation of school through the end of June, we entered phase 3. And that does include new content, new skills and content, but still focused on the most essential power standards that are needed for success in the next grade level. All along, we have endeavored in the Millis Public Schools to hit that sweet spot between meeting students' needs while not overwhelming the students or the families with too many demands, especially demands to connect at specific times of day, but providing more choice and control for families in how they were able to access it. I know, for example, with my 2 kids and both parents working from home, it just, our internet can't keep up with that. So we wanted to give families the ability to stagger when they were able to log in and get in to their various learning activities. Next. And so Jen Starr, our technology director, will speak to the technology. There you go. Oh, I know. You had to.
Apparently, when I hit my space bar, it moves the slides.
Oh, okay.
Go back to the slideshow. Thank you. There we go. Thank you. So this is Jennifer Starr, the Director of Digital Learning and Innovative Educational Technologies in Millis. Millis entered into phases 1 and 2 of remote learning with quite a robust technology program already in place. And this has actually served us really well as we enter into phase 3 of remote learning. During phases 1 and 2, the technology team was very focused on meeting the needs of students, getting devices deployed, and trying to make sure that the students who needed internet access had access. During that time, the tech team was also very focused on supporting the needs of staff as they were preparing for remote learning. So a lot of support, remote support around connecting to certain apps and getting certain applications to work. The tech team has coordinated with families and the school principals at this point to deploy more than 125 student devices, as well as 4 hotspots for internet access. Also during phase 3, the tech team continues to provide remote support, maintain the district's network and infrastructure, and support teachers and families in the use of various digital learning tools. I think we're going on to Joan.
So as we began looking at the power standards that Millis Public Schools has been using for quite a while, we began to realize that for some students in some classes that these standards would be review standards, some of them being reinforced so that the students can practice what they need to, but yet then with this phase 3 coming on board, that some of these new standards would need to be taught. So that's where our teachers are right now, is making some determinations based on individual needs as to what students need what skills at this time. Jen, the next slide, please. So in looking at new instruction and what the teachers are doing, there's been a wide range of activities that are happening in all of our classrooms. And some of those things have been via online video instruction. Some of them have been sort of filmed video instruction so that it's not a live situation, and that offering students the opportunity for some real world application and hands-on activities that can be done in their homes to secure some of those skills that need to be either reinforced or being introduced the first time. And throughout the whole process, meeting the individual needs of students who may need more supports or different supports. And those would be students who may have IEPs or would be in our ELL population. And always keeping in mind that we have a tiered system of support for all of our students, and some students need more, some students need different. And so those are some of the things that are going on in this new phase 3. Jen? And as Nancy mentioned earlier, one of our biggest pieces that we're concerned about is certainly making sure our students are engaged, and that we are reaching out to families to make sure that students are participating. And the teachers, as well as the guidance counselors and the principals, have been meeting with students or contacting families either through emails or phone calls, just to make sure that they are aware, that students know that we see them, that we want to reach out to them, that we want them to be participants, and that we are, for those reluctant participants in whole group Google Meets, that we may be doing that by having an individual participation and just having the teacher reach out to one student at a time. Jen? And again, all of the pieces that Nancy mentioned a little bit, we are still working towards roughly half the amount of time that students would spend in the school day, that students should be engaged in school activities, and that some things are online, some of them are offline. Teachers, for the most part, have been sending home the assignments at the beginning of the week, either on Sunday or Monday, and therefore the students have some opportunity to make some judgment as to what works for them and what works for their families. Some teachers are having office hours and individual meetings, as I mentioned, but I think more importantly too is that in addition to schoolwork, that there has been a concerted effort to make sure that there's interest-based groups. We have a couple of groups that are meeting by book clubs and by sing-alongs and workshops. And I know our high school is participating in a happiness club where anyone can join at a certain point at a prearranged time. And it's just really nice for the students to get together and to connect with one another. And also our counselors are helping to facilitate groups based on needs for those students that need them.
So this is Joe Russo, principal at the Clyde Brown. Continuing here with remote learning. We are all doing weekly learning activities that are emailed out to families mostly on the weekend so that they can start on Monday. Some families at the elementary level have asked that they have over the weekend to complete some activities because they are working Monday through Friday, and so they work with their students on the weekends to get their activities connected to their teachers. Um, we've really tried to streamline communication so people aren't getting bombarded. Some feedback that we've gotten is that, many people are getting numerous emails from different service providers. So we are really making the teams really work together to identify, contact people with certain families who have multiple adults working with their children. And we provided sample daily schedules, a weekly calendar. We want to make sure that we change up our communication with students and activities that they provide to give them a wide range of opportunities. Again, with the must-dos and the can-dos. So there are certain things that are identified. These include not only the academic areas, but also areas that, unified arts areas, so that there's a physical component, which is part of phase 3, that we focus on the extensions and the physical opportunities for students. Those choice boards and weekly checklists are, turned in many times to teachers so they know what has been accomplished by students, and teachers are maintaining records of all those things. We use mostly Google Classroom, and in the upper grades, It's Learning is certainly something that is used there too as well. I'm going to pass it now off to Assistant Principal and Counselor Elise Malloy. I think.
All right, thank you so much. I forgot to unmute myself. This is Elise Malloy. Thank you, Joe. Our teachers, as Joan had mentioned, have been talking about student levels of engagement, and our teachers have been collecting information on each student's level of participation and engagement during this time. What they're noticing is when they have a student, if they haven't heard from someone or they aren't participating in online activities, then the teachers would reach out directly to the student or to the family to see if they can support them. If they weren't able to access that family or student, they would connect with the counseling team, and our counselors would reach out to families to see what we could provide for assistance. We would get back information about if they needed devices, if they needed counseling support, or any other needs that might be necessary to help the students access school. Our teachers and staff have been providing individual students with specific feedback, and this is in order to continue our personalization and to support students with specific needs. Our staff have been having weekly meetings and team meetings to collaborate between the special education and general education staff, and this is able to provide a high level of collaboration and support for all student needs. I'm going to toss it back to Joe.
So at Clyde Brown, this speaks specifically, I have to just say in general, I've been so impressed with the way teachers have just really embraced this new learning and make it work for students. And, with all the support of families have been unbelievable. If you go onto the Clyde Brown remote learning page, families have been sending in some photographs of their students working at home. It's just so enjoyable to look and see what families are doing, and amazing things that are happening. So I encourage you to take a look through that if you haven't. So we started by doing some surveys of families and teachers, as we all did throughout the district, to make sure we understood kind of what their needs were. And in that, as Nancy mentioned, trying to find that sweet spot. And that's where we came up with this concept of the choice boards. And then in phase 3, to include the must-dos and can-dos with teachers looking closely at what the state has provided as grade level expectations and how they match with the power standards, and making sure that over the next 7 weeks that we are embracing those skills that have not been taught, so that students are prepared for the next grade, in knowing that there's going to be lots of review for the next grade teacher to complete some tasks that were not able to be completed online, because we can't guarantee that every student is doing every task, obviously. So there are weekly face-to-face opportunities, both in whole group and in some small groups, and we've encouraged in this next phase to look for opportunities for small groups for teachers to invite students in to do some specific tasks. We've also provided some document cameras for some teachers because interventionists have joined in this round as well. And so they are using some of those cameras to actually do some skill-based work in their home so that children can actually see rather than holding up to the screen like I'm doing now. They actually can connect through their computer so students can actually watch teachers and demonstrate and model for students what they are asking them to accomplish. That is also true in special education lessons. Those are individual and small group lessons that are happening weekly. So some students are getting multiple opportunities to work with teachers, but we also have an opportunity to do some social connection as well. It's not just about the academics. And I know some teachers are doing some sessions that are more game-based so that kids have an opportunity to do something socially with their classmates virtually since they can't see them day to day, and that's what they're missing probably the most, at least at the elementary level. So we do send out a weekly newsletter updating families with what's happening, and we've added a video message from either Elise or myself or Clyde the bear to engage students and let them know that we are happy and working with them and missing them a lot. And so for the future, we have begun the placement planning process in grades K to 5. Student and family notifications will happen before the end of the year, as they have in the past, this time virtually rather than visiting the class in person. We're also planning in the future, when the governor opens up and our ability to be involved, her teachers come in to begin to do some work of closing things up in their classrooms, as well as gathering student belongings and having families have an opportunity to pick that up probably later in the month or early in June. Next.
Hi, everyone. Maureen Knowlton here, principal of the middle school. So as not to be repetitive, what we're doing at the middle school very much mirrors what you've heard already through this slideshow from Joan and from Joe and Elise. We have attempted to make remote learning as personalized as possible to help students and families adapt and be successful. We can't mirror the school day, but we're doing the best we can, and we too follow a weekly format, delivering assignments with some video instruction and some face-to-face meetings. Students should be meeting with teachers at least once a week with each teacher, but there are multiple opportunities for more if they need it. And like you heard, there are also opportunities for things like book club or the happiness club with the high school. We have a Just for Fun Google Classroom and some other things coming up. We've been guided by feedback from students and parents and teachers so that we could adapt as we went along based on what was working and what was not working. And that's been truly helpful to us in making it, the best possible scenario for families at home, because we know that it's not easy. In some ways, we felt like it was September, the beginning of the school year, all over again, and we are now settling into a pretty good routine. We are focused on the recommendations of the Department of Ed around recommended standards, but particularly on encouraging ongoing engagement from middle school students. And to that end, we've tried to continue some of our typical routines with morning announcements and recognizing students with student shout outs that get mailed home. Teachers write something up and recognize their effort and their participation. And we really have been truly amazed by some of the projects students are completing at home and some of the activities that they're bringing their families in to participate with. So we're really excited to see what they're doing at home. We, like everybody else, are proceeding with discussions around closure to the end of the school year. We know that there are some things we need to take care of and plan for, especially the 8th grade promotion, and transitioning to next year and bringing 5th grade over and making everyone feel comfortable with that transition. So we're talking about those things and planning to do it as best we can virtually if we can't do anything in person. And like Clyde Brown, the middle school is so grateful for our partnership with parents and families and all they're doing at home to help keep students involved and learning. And everybody's doing the best they can at this difficult time. The teachers certainly are going above and beyond, making their own videos and doing whatever they can to try and get kids excited about participating from home.
Hi, I'm Bob Mulaney. I'm the high school principal. And again, I don't want to be redundant with some of the things that other people have spoken about this evening. Just a few things that kind of pertain to the high school. Since phase 2 of online learning, we've been working as students receiving credit or no credit based on their completion of work. So we're not grading students the traditional A, B, C, etc. But we do have this credit, no credit, a system of accountability to hopefully be another lever to keep kids engaged. When we originally went out on March 13th, we didn't know how long it would be before we were back, but we were kind of hoping that we would be back. So we combined terms 3 and 4, figuring that we'd have graded assignments in term 3, and then we'd have some opportunity for graded assignments in term 4. But with the governor's latest order, now that we're in phase 3, we know we're not going to be back for term 4. So we're still working on how final grades and GPAs are going to be calculated, and we're still waiting for some guidance from the Department of Education on that. So that's something that's still in the works, but hopefully we'll have some more clarity on that soon. Again, like the middle and Clyde Brown, we're using both asynchronous models and live meets. What we've found is that the asynchronous lessons seem to work for more kids at the high school level because they can access it as best fits their schedule. We do have some kids in the high school who are now working full time, and they're the only the only members of their family who are actually earning a paycheck during this pandemic. So some kids are accessing the lessons later at night. But we found that the asynchronous works well for the lessons. The live sessions seem to work better for small groups, extra help, and a lot of the live meetings are just about kids connecting with their classmates and teachers, which is, as Nancy mentioned, a huge part of what we're trying to do, a huge priority. Some teachers are also using virtual office hours, so we're trying to keep in contact with kids. As Maureen mentioned, with transitions, we're working on having end of year activities and celebrations for a class of 2020. I had a meeting with the class officers last week, and one of the class leaders said, we want our class to be remembered for, positive, ending the year in a positive way. We don't want to be remembered as the class that had everything taken away by this pandemic. So, we really want to celebrate these kids, and I'd like to thank a lot of the parents in the town and teachers who are really going out of their way to celebrate the class of 2020. You may have seen some of the lawn signs in front of seniors' homes. A group of parents led by Tammy Coots and Sharon Valancourt and Shannon Graham. And I know I'm missing some parents, but they were the driving force behind getting all our seniors those lawn signs on their homes. The fire department put a big banner over Route 109 today to celebrate our senior class. And we're working on some other things. The police and fire department are going to work with us on a parade for the class of 2020. So, we're really working on celebrating the kids, and I'm meeting with the entire class tomorrow evening to get kind of their thoughts on graduation and things like that. I think right now, from what I'm hearing from the kids I've spoken to, is if at all possible, they would like to do some kind of live ceremony where they are together. And if we can do that, we will definitely do that.
Bob, I don't mean to interrupt the presentation, but I just want to let you know, just on that topic specifically, graduation. As a school committee, we are all very much in support of finding a way to do a live graduation, even if that is obviously, if it's not June and it's July and it's August. We are very supportive of doing that.
Thank you. That's right. Because I think the kids, again, I'm meeting with the whole class tomorrow, but the kids I've talked to in the senior class, and I've talked to many of them, really would like that type of event. So much of the celebration of their end of high school is about being together, and they haven't had that. So to the extent that we can do something to let them be together, I really appreciate the school committee's support in that. Yes, moving on.
Joanne Marks, I'm the Director of Student Services, and I'm honored to report that special education and related services have been provided remotely across the district and by districts, by out of district schools as well. So 175 students have their IEPs being delivered. What that means is that an individual remote learning plan has been created for each one of these students, describing how in this environment that they will be supported and receive instruction in the ways that you've heard earlier. An important part, of course, is that collaboration between general and special educators and related service providers. It has been an incredible effort, and I'm so honored to be part of the team that has made the commitment to make sure that we're being effective. Another thing that we found very important from the beginning, as folks have mentioned, is the communication with parents. I can't thank the CPAC enough for how many times we called them and said, will you look at this? Will you review this document with us? Can we have a conversation? We're also sharing a calendar of services so that parents get a 2-week calendar of services that outlines everything. I'm afraid that we were over communicating at the beginning, and they were oftentimes receiving an abundance of emails, and it was difficult to sort, especially in our younger family, what was a priority. So we've combined our communication. We've done some surveys both to staff and parents. Our next hope is to do something with students in the upper grades to find out what they are learning, what they like, what they appreciate. But from the feedback from staff, it really is an individual process for our students. And we've had some amazing surprises for students who have just actually found a sort of a groove in this remote environment. But I'd have to say for most, as well as for most of the staff members, we're finding the reinvention of education challenging. We send home news notes every a few weeks in a row, and as needed, to update on some of their changing requirements in special education and what we're hoping to do. And of course, the interpersonal contact that we've had with families, and organizing meetings, team meetings is the next thing that's in process. And it's actually been a really wonderful thing because staff members have been together and have been able to hear so many positive remarks from families, and a lot of gratitude. And I think that's the part that gets to be missing sometimes when we're engaged in this remote learning. And we're in the process of planning summer services. And I use the word plan loosely because we don't quite know the form that that's going to take. But we will keep you all informed and be sending notices home to parents once those things have been determined. Thank you.
So for next steps, we are awaiting more guidance from the Department of Education, and the Commissioner of Education is in frequent contact with state officials and the Department of Public Health. So we will utilize that and adhere to the guidelines for summer, any programming we have in the summer, and to plan for next fall. More immediately, we will be probably the end of May, beginning of June, we will let families know a schedule for coming to pick up the students' belongings that were left in school. And, because none of us at that time thought that this would go on so long. And Bob mentioned, especially at the high school level, there will be more guidance coming on grading, but the expectation is that the vast majority of students will continue on to the next grade level as usual. And we are stepping up our feedback systems and assessments to see where students are in their learning. We're tracking that carefully. We'll be doing more and more of that as we move through the next 6 weeks and into the fall to make sure that students get what they need, find out where they are. And I have to say, as a couple people have mentioned, because Millis had embarked upon a blended learning model with technology enhancing our learning and instruction, and then a personalized approach, that this has not been a sea change for Millis. Teachers have had to work very, very hard, and the administrative team, the principals, are doing phenomenal work, as are the directors, Dr. Marks and Joan Lynn and Jen Starr, and everybody's pulled together very well to make this happen. But in philosophy, we were in a better situation than a lot of districts because we have the one-to-one learning environment, and students in all grades were used to using their devices and used to using the software programs that we have. So we will continue to solicit feedback from students and the families, and of course include families and your input as we embark upon planning for summer programming and the fall. Next. And we thank you all very, very much. We know remote learning is not perfect. We miss everybody terribly. And there's a vital connection that makes schools a very vibrant place to be. And I think all of us are missing that. But as I said, it has been an incredibly positive experience in terms of how well everybody has pulled together, families and educators, to make this work. And so we thank you all very much for that.